Hello friends, welcome to C# Intermediate to Advanced tutorial. Now we are starting a new sub-series C# Delegates and Events. So in this sub-series, first you will learn the basics of delegates and event. Then in the second video, we will talk about the example which we are going to create in the next two parts. Then you will see how to create a custom event and how to raise that event. After that, you will see how to consume the custom event. We will also see how to provide and revoke handler for the custom event. So all this stuff we will see in this sub-series. So a delegate is like a pointer to a function, or it's a kind of type that identifies a function prototype. When we talk about function prototype, it involves function parameter and its a return type. So a delegate defines parameter type, order, and return value. Parameter type means it includes in which order the parameter types occurs. So both together and then the return value. One can declare a delegate like below: public delegate. So this is an access specifier for the delegate. Just like how you define a data member with the access specifier, the same way you will specify access specifier for the delegate as well, because delegate is also a type. Just like how you declare int xm, so this will be the member and you specify its data type. Then here you will specify its access specifier, private, public, protector, whatever it is, so that you will specify. The same way, instead of int here, we have the delegate type, public. So this delegate type defines a function prototype. So here this one is not actually the function name, so it is the delegate name. So here int is the type and xm is the variable, right? Similarly, delegate is the keyword to define the type. Then do math delegate, so this is actually the delegate name. Then the function return type will be int and the function takes 2 integer as parameter. So that's the type here we are defining. An event is declared out of the above delegate. Here if you see, we defined a delegate. So the delegate name is do math delegate, and do math delegate can refer any function that takes 2 integer as parameter and returns an integer. So out of this delegate we can define an event. So access specifier, this time the keyword is event. This event is adhering to the delegate type do math delegate. That means here we are defining a event and this one is the event name. Here if you see do math delegate, that's the delegate name. Here do math handler, this is actually the event name. And here what we specify is this event is of type do math delegate. That means here do math handler is the event, and this event can call the handler of type DoMathDelegate. DoMathDelegate is denoting a function or any function that takes two integer as parameter and returns an integer. So that's what here we are talking about. So when client gives a handler for this DoMath handler, they will give a function, any function that takes two integer as parameter and returns an integer. So that can act as a handler, and that handler can be hooked to the event DoMath handler. Remember, DoMath handler is the event name, and when client hooks the event, they will hook it to the DoMath handler. You can think this DoMath handler like a click event on a button, like so. All right, now we have a delegate. Delegate name is DoMathDelegate, and we know that it takes two integer and returns an integer. Then we have a DoMath handler of type DoMathDelegate, right? To raise the event producer will call invoke method of the event. Here, what is the event name? Event name is DoMath handler. That means the event producer can call DoMath handler dot invoke. So invoke method can be called from the event. So if you see here, so this is how we define the delegate, right? We specify the delegate keyword, and that delegate will denote return type and parameter list, of course with the order. So here in our example, the return type here is integer and parameter list is two integers. So the order also important. Suppose if we have an integer and a float, then the order is important. First parameter is integer, second parameter is float. So that's how the delegate denotes a function. Here if you see, we doesn't specify any function name, but so do not get confused with DoMathDelegate that returns an integer, takes two parameter, and this is the function name. But this is not actually the function name. This is the name given for the delegate. You can give any name, but for easy identification purpose, here we are using the delegate suffixed with DoMath. Next, when we are creating the event, we specify the event keyword. Then we give the delegate name to the event, just to say that the event, when it is raised, it will invoke the handler that returns an integer and it takes two integer parameter. Then here we specify the event name, right? This is a scope specifier. So event DoMathDelegate, we specify the delegate name. The delegate was created using the delegate keyword, and we specified the return type as well as parameter list. And when we give that to the event, here we are defining the event with the keyword event, of course with some other specifier. Then we specify DoMathDelegate. This way we are telling that the event which can be raised, when the event is raised, it should call some function. So what is the signature of the function, or what type of function? So that's what here we are specifying using the DoMathDelegate type. So the delegate type tells what is the return value and what is the parameter list. That is the handler when the event is raised, so it should call the handler functions, and handler functions adhere to this function type. That means it returns integer, text to integer parameter. Also, in producer point of view, here if you see, when we have event in the event producer point of view, there may be different piece of code where we will invoke, let's say this is the event name, anywhere we can invoke the server. So when you make a call to invoke, it will invoke the corresponding event handler. There may be multiple pieces of code that can raise the event. So raising the event means you have to use the event name, then call the invoke method. There may be different pieces of code that can do the invoke. Let's say you are designing a form and that form contains the OK button or some save button, let's say, and you are handling the click event. That means the client is handling the click event. When we are handling the click event, we provide a function, right? Then we will write our code here. So this is actually the consumer part. In consumer part, we are interested in the click event and we hook this click event to the handler function. But in the producer point of view, at a .NET framework, the framework will monitor the mouse press and mouse release. So it will look for these two events. When these two occurs, it will raise the event click. Since the client is registered to this click event, the handler will get called. That means .NET framework may define a delegate function that adhere to this signature. Then they have a event, public event, click. So here delegate name, then click. So that's the event name, right? So inside, when they are tracking the press and release, once they noted down that mouse is pressed and released on the specific button, then they will raise the event click.invoke. And all the registered handler get called. So that's how the click event works. Since here we are going to explore all this stuff, you will get more light on how the event and delegates work together. The client will use event do math handler. So that's the event exposed here, right? This is the event name defined with the event keyword. So the client will use the event do math handler and tie that with their handler routine. So here we are talking about the consumer point of view. In the previous slide, we talked about the producer point of view. Here it's the consumer point of view. So this is what we saw in the previous slide. This is the producer point of view. Now we are learning the consumer, what the consumer will do. So the client will use the event do math handler. That's what the producer is exposing. Consumer will use that event and tie that with their handler routine. That means they will provide the handler routine, and when they are providing the handler, they can have any function name, but that function name should take 2 integer and it should return an integer. So this is what imposed by the do math handler, and we know what this delegate is, right? Takes 2 integer and returns an integer. All right, so client can tie one or more such event handler also. So at any time they can tie the handler routine with the event do math handler. So if you see, when the client is having 3 functions, fx, fx1, fx2, all are eligible to tie to this event handler, do math handler. because do math handler is expecting a handler that should return an integer that should take two integer as a parameter. So fx qualifies because two integer return type integer, fx1 also qualify and fx2 also can qualify to this. Let's say the client is tying the event. Here the event is do math, right? Math handler. So let's say the client is tying this one. Also the client is hooking the second procedure also to the do math handler. So what happens, do math handler, let's say based on some business logic, when they make a call to invoke method, so let's say this is x for simplicity, and this is a different piece of code or at a different location in the producer. When they make a call to x dot invoke, since a client hooked these two, the moment the producer calls invoke, it supplies the two integer parameter that may be formed somewhere here. They will supply the two and they will make a call to the tied handler fx1 and fx2. So that's what happens in the producer. So this part is a producer part and here it is a consumer. Consumer is registering to this event. Producer, they will invoke the event handler through the event. So using the event, they will tie the handler, and at runtime the producer will arise the event. So calling this invoke method is what called arising the event. Here providing this handler and hooking is what called handling the event. If you see, the producer raises the event and the client handles the event. When they handle the event, they provide a function. How the function should look or what parameter it should take, what it should return. That's what defined by the event by making use of the delegate type, and delegate type should be defined separately. Alright, now we will come back to the theory part. The handler method should adhere to the syntax of delegate, do math delegate. Alright, so here we are talking about a specific example. So the handler method should adhere to the event, and the event will claim the handler should be of a specific type that will be denoted by the delegate. When multiple handler methods are tied to an event, here in this example if you see there are two handlers adhering to the same return type. Function names are different and their implementation logic also can be different. So it's up to the user how they want to handle. So what here we are trying to say, there are two handler that is attached to one single event. When multiple handler methods are tied to an event, .NET will dispatch the event to all the handlers. So here we will be raising the event only once when certain condition occurs. But there are two handlers, that means the invoke will dispatch the event to both the handler, or we can simply say even though you call invoke once, it will call both the handlers. So we call this as event chaining. Let's say this is fx1. fx1 is tied to a specific event handler, then fx2 also tied. So when invoke or when an event is raised, since two events are attached, it will call fx1, after that it will call fx2. So at runtime the client can add the event or they can remove the event anytime. So that's all here. There is no demo in this first concept part. We will continue in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.